Meet Sarah, a successful lawyer, a woman who has built her entire life on logic, precision, and an unshakable trust in the facts. She is sharp, she is confident, she is exactly the kind of person you would never expect to find herself questioning her own sanity, but that is exactly what happens when Tom walks into her life. At first, everything about Tom feels like magic. The flowers that show up at her office for no reason. The long candlelit dinners where he hangs on her every word. The way he looks at her like she is the most extraordinary person he has ever met. It feels like a fairy tale. And Sarah, brilliant, logical Sarah, allows herself to believe in it completely. But then, slowly, so slowly she almost doesn't notice, things begin to change. It starts with something small, so seemingly insignificant, that Sarah almost lets it go entirely. One evening over dinner, Tom looks at her across the table and says, calmly, almost casually, "You're remembering that wrong." And Sarah pauses. She replays the conversation in her head. She is absolutely certain she is right, but Tom is so confident, so unbothered, so utterly convinced of his own version of events that she begins to wonder. Maybe she did get it wrong. Maybe she misheard. And so, because she loves him, she lets it go. But here is the thing about letting things go with a narcissist. They never just let it go back. Before we go any further, we need to talk about what Tom actually is. Because Tom is a narcissist. And that word gets thrown around a lot these days. But what does it actually mean? A narcissist is not just someone who is vain or self-absorbed. A narcissist is someone with a deep, pathological, unshakable belief that they are more important, more special, and more deserving than everyone around them. They crave admiration the way the rest of us crave oxygen. They have an extraordinary capacity for charm, for manipulation, and for making every single problem in the relationship feel like your fault, even when it absolutely, categorically is not. And their most powerful weapon? It is called gaslighting. Gaslighting is not just lying. It is something far darker, far more calculated, and far more dangerous than a simple lie. It is a slow, deliberate, systematic attempt to make you question your own sanity, your own memory, and your own grasp on reality. The term itself comes from a 1944 film called Gaslight, where a manipulative husband secretly dims the gas-powered lights in their home and then flatly denies that anything has changed until his wife begins to believe she is losing her mind. That is what narcissists do, not with lights, but with words, with silence, with a raised eyebrow and a slow, patronizing sigh that says, without saying anything at all, "There you go again." Clinical psychologist Dr. Robin Stern, who wrote the groundbreaking book The Gaslight Effect, describes this as a dance. One person constantly trying to redefine reality, the other desperately trying to hold on to what they know is true. And the terrifying part? By the time most victims realize what is happening, they are already so deep inside the fog that they can barely remember what reality felt like before. Sarah is deep inside the fog. She finds herself apologizing for things she did not do, avoiding topics she knows will set Tom off, shrinking herself down piece by piece to fit into the tiny, suffocating box he has decided she belongs in. "You're too sensitive," he tells her, when she cries after something genuinely hurtful. "I never said that," he insists, about a promise he made just 3 days ago. And Sarah, she starts to believe him. Not because she is weak, not because she is foolish, but because that is what gaslighting does. It does not happen all at once. It happens drop by drop, day by day, until one morning you wake up and realize you no longer trust the one mind you have lived inside your entire life. Then comes the night that changes everything. After an argument so exhausting, so twisted, so completely divorced from any version of reality Sarah recognizes, she sits alone in her car in the parking garage outside their apartment. And in that silence, something shifts. She picks up her phone and she starts searching. And what she finds changes everything. She reads about narcissistic personality disorder. She reads about gaslighting. She reads about love bombing, trauma bonding, and the vicious, calculated cycle of narcissistic abuse. And with every word she reads, Another piece of the puzzle clicks into place. For the first time in months, Sarah does not feel crazy. She feels clear. Psychologist Dr. Stephanie Sarkis, who has spent decades studying narcissistic abuse, says that the moment a victim finally names what is happening to them is the single most powerful moment in their entire recovery. Because you cannot fight an enemy you cannot see. But the moment you can see it, the moment you can look it in the eye and call it exactly what it is, everything changes. And so Sarah begins to fight back, not with rage, not with confrontation, but with quiet, steady, unshakable clarity. She starts keeping a journal, documenting every incident, every contradiction, every moment where Tom tries to rewrite history. She starts calling her friends again, the ones she had slowly drifted away from because Tom had made her feel like she was too much, too emotional, too needy. And those friends remind her of something vital. They remind her of who she was before him. She starts working with a therapist who specializes in narcissistic abuse recovery. And that therapist teaches her something that sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but feels, in that moment, completely revolutionary. She tells Sarah this: you do not need his agreement to trust your own memory. You do not need him to validate your reality for your reality to be real. So Sarah stops engaging. She stops taking the bait. She stops trying to win arguments that were never, ever designed to be won. She uses a technique therapists call the gray rock method, making herself as calm, as flat, and as emotionally unreactive as possible, draining all the drama and intensity that narcissists feed on. And slowly, steadily, she watches as Tom loses his grip on her. It is not easy. Leaving a narcissist is not just leaving a person. It is leaving an entire version of reality you have been living inside. It is grieving a love that was never quite real, while simultaneously trying to rebuild a self that was taken apart, quietly and methodically, piece by piece. But Sarah does it. And the morning after she finally walks away, she wakes up and the first thought in her head is not, "What did I do wrong?" The first thought is simply, "I remember who I am." Researcher and author Lundy Bancroft, who has spent over 20 years working with abusive partners, says that recovery from narcissistic abuse is not just about leaving the relationship. It is about reclaiming the story of your own life. Understanding that the narrator who told you that you were too much, too sensitive, too crazy, was never a reliable source. So if you are watching this right now and something in Sarah's story sounds familiar, if you find yourself constantly apologizing for things you cannot quite identify, if you feel like you are always walking on eggshells, if the person who claims to love you makes you feel like you are slowly losing your mind, then listen carefully. What you are experiencing has a name. It is not your fault. You are not alone. And there is a way out. Trust the version of events that lives in your gut, the one that existed before someone else started rewriting it, because that version belongs to you. And no narcissist, no matter how charming, no matter how convincing, no matter how certain they sound, can ever take it from you, unless you hand it over. Sarah walked into that relationship as a sharp, confident, clear-eyed woman who trusted herself completely. And she walked out of it the same woman, just one who now knows exactly what she is capable of surviving. Because here is the truth about gaslighting. It is designed to make you forget who
You are.